Good morning and welcome to this morning's reflection. Is there a reality that meets the deepest needs of the heart? Who gets the last word? Is it romance or is it the arrows? The arrows of affliction. We find ourselves in the middle of a story that is sometimes wonderful and sometimes awful, and often a confusing mixture of the both. Our deepest convictions of the heart are formed by the stories of our lives. Life is a series of dramatic scenes. We live in a story, complete with the beginning and the end, the plot and the characters. Story is the language of the heart. So if we want to find the answers, we will find them in the stories. Once upon a time, the Western world had a story. Imagine you lived in the Middle Ages. Your world would have rung with Christian images. Your days would be marked by the sound of church bells, the year by the liturgical calendar, and our role models would be saints. The architecture of cathedrals, the music, the literature and the sculpture all gave you a vision of the transcendence, reminding you of God's great story. All of experience would be shaped by this great story. But you do not live in the Middle Ages. You live in a postmodern world which has got rid of God's story. Our role models now are movie stars. And the only reminder that we have a story beyond our own is the evening news, an arbitrary collection of scenes and images without any bigger picture into which it might fit. The central belief of our times is that there is no story. There is nothing meaningful. All we have are random events. So what are we left with? What are we left to do? Well, we create our own story to try to give life meaning. The heart longs to live in a large and meaningful story. So we love to lose ourselves in the smallest kinds of stories. And some of these stories are as follows. Some choose the story of the victim. Victims demand to be understood. They demand to be cared for. They demand to not be responsible for their actions or for their emotions. Another story is the story of the survivor. The world is a dangerous place, so they do not take risks. They protect themselves and cut themselves off from others. In their story, life is all about the arrows. Another story tries to preserve romance, looking for romantic love, someone to sweep them off their feet and make their world just a wonderful place. Some choose the story that life is a game, and they must win this at all costs. And some opt for the spiritual story, where they seek to bargain with God for protection. If they are moral enough or believe the right doctrine, then they can tame God and so tame life. These are all the stories that we live in when we do not have a bigger story. But there is another story, one that recognizes the tragedy in life, but also keeps hope alive. Could it be that our lives make sense? All of our lives make sense. Those deep yearnings catch us by surprise, and we realize that there's more to life than the message of pain. We know in our story that we are called, that our hearts are resurrected to a sacred romance. And we realize that in fact the story is all about that romance. And so tomorrow we will look at the story that God has been telling us since the very beginning. Amen.